Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to pull a John Gibbons trick and say, move those lips and say good morning and wave. Yeah, there we go. See, I love that. I love seeing all of you. I'm so happy you're here this morning. I also want to point out that in the chat, it was mentioned that if you need the closed captioning, go down to the bottom of your screen, the dashboard at the bottom of your screen, and you'll see a place where it says CC live transcript. And if you push show subtitle, you will get the closed captioning for this service. I only have a couple of announcements this morning for you. There is a UU Mass Action Hour over lunch on Earth Day this coming Thursday, April 22nd at 12 p.m. on Zoom. Reverend Annie sent out an announcement with further details yesterday on the announcement list, and it's posted on the First Parish Facebook page. If you didn't see it or didn't get the announcement, please let Annie know and she'll be happy to send you the information. One of the goals of the Environmental Justice Committee for this past church year was to promote green infrastructure in Bedford and surrounding communities to support net zero. The committee is supporting a petition that Bedford Mothers Out Front launched to advocate for 100% renewable electricity being the default for Bedford residents in the next community choice aggregation electricity contract. Boy, that's a mouthful. That the town negotiates. Please sign this petition by April 20th and share it with your friends too. It will be on the anno list, and after the Time for All Ages today, I will put the link in the chat if you would like to sign it. The committee really encourages you to sign the petition. And so now it's a stewardship moment. And Ron Green would like to share his thoughts with us. Ron?
Well, thinking back to First Parish, I should be unmuted, right?
You are.
Okay. Thinking back to my first days at First Parish, that was Buzz Moran, somebody you might remember if you're older than me. He invited me to a Paul Songus rally to raise funds. Now, I was a Peace Corps volunteer. Paul Songus was a Peace Corps volunteer. We met really interesting people. Doris Smith, Teresa, Theobald, John Unifeld, others. And they all said one thing in common. They all said, I'll see you on Sunday. I'll see you on Sunday. See you on Sunday at First Parish. What was this thing, the First Parish? I went over. And I'd never really seen anything like First Parish before. I was brought up an Episcopalian, and that's a faith you don't really join. You're born into, you marry into, or you have your pretenses arise and you buy into. And this service wasn't Anglican at all. We didn't have to do a lot of rote descriptions of what we believed in, or we didn't have to plead as somebody who died a couple of thousand years ago. It was very popular, very much a people's organization. So I signed the book when the time came for people to sign books a couple of months later. Well, along with signing the book, along came Brown Pulley, and Brown made a plea for a pledge. Well, what's a pledge? Well, a pledge is something you think you can afford. You can help to keep the church going. Well, at the time, Ray and I didn't. We did have a window to fill it up, but we didn't have much beyond that. We'd spent a lot of time overseas in a job that didn't pay a whole heck of a lot, and I had a lot of downtime between college and the moment that Brown was sitting there. So we hadn't accumulated a ton of money. So I told him, well, I'll make it $50. How about that? And it was $50 for the whole year. And for Brown, that was plenty. It was something. It was a start. And since then, our pledges have gone up. They've gone down. we really never really had a firm idea of what what the money went to, although we looked at the budget every year at annual meeting. But we found that this community was a place for commitment. It was a place for caring. It was a place to build character and comradeship. A place to have coffee. There was one other C, of course. It was a place that was run by committees. And that was kind of the small group ministry of the day. You get on a committee that deals with the plant or religious services or RE, and that was kind of your subcommittee of the church as a whole. But we grew along those lines. Now 40 years is a long time for a membership. And we've had our ups and downs, First Parish and I. We find at times that First Parish will break your heart. It'll make you feel just like nobody hears me. But sometimes it'll mend your heart. And if you didn't have one when you walked in the door, pretty soon it'll give you a heart. That's what it did for me. For my daughter Rebecca, who was, of all the places in all the world, she walked into ours as an adult. And she chose to live in Bedford mainly because of First Parish and what it has meant to her in her childhood. Well, back to pledges. We learned about donating stocks lately. And boy, I'll tell you, that was an eye-opener in terms of how you can save money on your taxes and still give more to First Parish. There's information all over the place about that. I won't get into the details, but if you want to, you can catch me at coffee hour. This is something that really allowed me to give more than I could have. And I intend to do more of that as time goes by. I ask myself the question, when I think about First Parish, is this my home? Will your kids choose this as a place for home? Do you think along those lines too? If it's your home and you want kids to think of it as their home, come up with a couple of bucks if you can. Times are tough. I know it, you know it, everybody knows it. But I look forward to seeing your pledge. Bye for now.
Thank you, Ron. I've been reminded by Tina Nappy that another announcement is there are going to be small groups that meet with John in relation to his upcoming departure. Tina is going to put a link in the chat for people to sign up for those small meetings. Also, you will probably find the link is coming to you sometime later this week on the parish biz list. Thank you, Tina, for the reminder. Now, would everyone please join me in the unison affirmation? Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. El amor es el espíritu de esta iglesia, y el servicio es su ley. Este es nuestro gran pacto, vivir juntos en paz, buscar la verdad en el amor, y ayudarnos los unos a los otros.
I'm here with Marge Heckman, a member of our lay pastoral care team, and I will help Marge find people who may wish to share a joy or a sorrow briefly.
And so I will offer one last candle for all those joys and concerns that we keep in our hearts.
And all the things I learned might fill my heart with joy or sorrow. And everything I learned might make me want to change my ways. Oh, there is nothing, no thing that ever stays the same. That is the one thing, one thing that life does guarantee. There is no one on earth, no one who knows what path their life will take, and no one knows what I will see as I keep becoming me. The family you were raised in does not dictate who you marry, and the country you were born in won't decide where you are buried, and all you once believed might leave you stranded on an island where the only way back home is to abandon it as lies. And there is nothing, no thing that ever stays the same. That is the one thing, the one thing that life does guarantee. There is no one on earth, no one who knows where their lives will lead, what path their life will take, and no one knows what I will see as I keep becoming me, becoming me. I must stay open to the change, curious and free, and always ready to be rearranged. There is nothing that ever stays the same. That is the one thing that life does guarantee. There is no one on earth, no one who knows what course their life will take, and no one knows who I will be as I keep becoming me, as I keep becoming me, as I keep becoming me, as I keep becoming.
And now it's the time for all ages. Today's time for all ages is The Emperor's New Clothes, originally by Barbara Godden and adapted for us today by Deborah Weiner. Once upon a time, long ago, maybe last year, maybe right now, there was an emperor who was having a cup of tea in his imperial mug. He needed a new set of clothes to wear to a grand parade. He called on two of his finest cloth weavers to make him these clothes and thought they might be able to profit from this amazing job. "Oh, Emperor," One said, "We have invented the most marvelous cloth. It'll cost you a little extra, but it is magic. It's so magic that people can't see it if they are ignorant or if they're lazy or they're not good at their jobs. So not only will your majesty look your absolute royal best, you will also be able to tell immediately who you should fire from their jobs and how you should rule the land." The emperor thought, "I've been wondering who these people are, trying to find out who can help me stay powerful. I'll take it." Off went the weavers to work. Oh, but they are slow. They are so slow. The emperor sent in one of his wisest advisors to check out on their progress. When he got there, he saw that 2 of the weavers were doing nothing at all. It looked like they were waving their hands back and forth and back in front of the loom, but there was no cloth coming out. Still, he didn't want the emperor to think he was dumb or lazy. So he rushed back and said to the emperor, "It's amazing. The cloth is so beautiful. You'll absolutely love it." The emperor was pleased, for he knew that he would look magnificent and that this would make people absolutely adore him, even worship him. Everyone would say, "Yes, your majesty." I'm looking to all you peasants. Can you say, "Yes, your majesty"? I'm not seeing anyone say it. Can I see you say, "Yes, your majesty"? Everyone. Thank you. Finally, the day arrived and the weavers brought the suit in for the emperor to try on. I have it right here. I can actually show you. So hold on just a moment and I'll show you what the emperor was wearing. You know, this is the emperor's new clothes. And so the emperor stood up and he showed the clothes. Let me show you what I'm wearing. Did you see it? Well, you saw enough, trust me. Well, the emperor had thought the same thing. My, it's very drafty in here. He felt a wave of panic. Oh no, am I one of the dumb, lazy people? Why can't I see this suit? He couldn't say that out loud, so he asked his advisors to help him put it on. He felt embarrassed when he looked in the mirror because it looked like he was wearing absolutely nothing at all. But the weavers pulled here and creased there, and they oohed and they awed. Can you ooh and ah for me? Ooh, ah. And they admired how wonderful it looked on him. And they told him so over and over and over again. And the emperor believed them. Then it was time for the grand parade and the emperor's big entrance into the city. Lots of people showed up of every type. They all came to look at the emperor. They wanted to worship him. They wanted to say, "Yes, your majesty." And the emperor had planned the huge celebration for himself. Everyone cheered loudly, "Yay!" for the acrobats, "Yay!" for the dancers, "Yay!" for the horses. Then out came the emperor, completely naked. Everyone got very, very quiet. Then someone said, "Huzzah for the emperor!" And another person said, "He looks like a new man." but one young child looked and said, "I don't think he's wearing any clothes." And the parade and the music and the dancing suddenly stopped. I wonder what you might have done if you were watching that parade. I wonder if there's ever been a time when you knew that something was wrong, even though other people thought it was just fine. I wonder what it takes to have the courage to say something, even if no one else is, to tell the emperor that he's naked. I wonder about how we understand truth and imagination. I'll leave you with that thought to ponder as we move on with our service today.
Thank you, Brad. It was wonderful. Our reading this morning comes from the new book, Useful Delusions, The Power and Paradox of the Self-Deceiving Brain by Shankar Vedantam and Bill Messler. They write, believing what we want to believe and seeing what we want to see is less a state of mind or a reflection of one's intelligence and more a response to one's circumstances. Foregoing self-deception isn't merely a mark of education or enlightenment. It is a sign of privilege. If you don't believe in Santa Claus or the virgin birth, it's because your life does not depend on your believing such things. Your material, cultural, and social worlds are providing you with other safety nets for your psychological and physical needs. But should your circumstances change for the worse, were the pillars of your life to buckle and sway, your mind too would prove fertile ground for the wildest self-deceptions. There are, as we say, no atheists in foxholes. Thus ends the reading.
Thank you, Deb. And it is my privilege to introduce our offering. Brad, I hope you've gotten some clothes back on and you're not suffering that draft. And I am in the process, as you know, of cleaning my office. And I have nearly as many costumes and tchotchkes as Brad has. And I have not yet gotten to clean my files. In my files, I have one entire fat folder of ways to introduce the offering. And this is the one that popped out at me this morning. There is a Japanese folk tale about a very fine school that had outgrown its quarters. The master of the school approached many well-off townsfolk if they might help. A merchant decided to donate 500 pieces of gold toward the construction of the new school. The merchant presented the bag of gold to the master. The master took the bag, but said nothing. The merchant was a bit put off by the master's apparent lack of gratitude. In that bag are 500 pieces of gold, hinted the merchant. Yes, you told me that before, replied the master. Even though I am a wealthy merchant, 500 gold pieces is a lot of money, said the merchant. It is. Do you want me to thank you for it? Asked the master. Well, I think you should, the merchant responded. But then the master replied, why should I be thankful? It is the giver who should be thankful. Well, As has been said, one never regrets opportunities to be generous. And I truly believe that. And I do believe that it is an opportunity to be thankful when we are able to give. And I also am smart enough to know that we also should be grateful for your generosity. And so at this time in the service, you know how you can give virtually. The instructions will be put up on a screen before you. You can go to our webpage and hit Give Plus, and it is really quite easy. And many people have been giving regularly, for which no doubt they are grateful for the opportunity, but we are also grateful for their generosity. Freely we have given, and freely we have received. For the generosity of this community, we give thanks, and our offering will now be both gratefully given and gratefully received. Now is the time for our offering. On we go.
Thank you to Elaine Hagenberg for that glorious piece, Oh Love. So, friends, I want to tell you a little story about my father-in-law, Dick Soul. He was a colorful character who had many funny sayings in his lexicon. Wake up, they're moving the outhouse. Drive fast, the roads are covered with drunks. And sometimes when I was trying to have a discussion or debate with him about some important element, he would erupt with, don't bother me with the facts, I've made up my mind. That was usually followed by him slamming a fist down, and that was the end of the discussion. Perhaps you have also run into that kind of brick wall, human or otherwise, as you tried to present someone with reason, intellect, data during an emotional discussion. And you found out that, nope, they were just not interested in going to that place. Another story comes to mind. When I was growing up, my father, a social worker and a very smart guy, tended to say yes to me more than no. A good idea, he felt, if I could provide logic and reason for why I wanted to do something. If I made my case well enough, I got the green light. If I wanted to do something just because, like because all the other kids get to, there might be a yellow light or a red one. I tried to pass this mode of reasoning onto my own kids. And in general, I think that there should be sensibility about why we want to do or not do something. We want to do it because it's good for all of us, for instance, or because others will benefit from the decision rather than because I want to, or because all the cool kids are doing it. But sometimes, too often these days, we get swept up in a tide of misinformation that can take us into a world of believing and advocating for something that really isn't true. Something that is built on a house of cards, something or someone that can be destructive or that might not help us in the end. Cults of personality have always been around. Some might suggest that Jesus had one surrounding him, as have other charismatic leaders or people who have managed to garner a certain amount of notoriety for what they have said or done. Sometimes that makes total sense. It's Patriots' Day weekend in Massachusetts, so let me spend just a minute focusing in that direction. Historical figures like George Washington, who was respected for his leadership, and John Adams, who was by all accounts a brilliant but pretty prickly character, were admired for their commitment to what they saw as values that would sustain the nascent American society. Today, you can undoubtedly think of some others who might go into this bucket of charismatic leaders who have garnered followers to advance their perspectives. Malala Yousafzai, Greta Thunberg, and Reverend William Barber come to my mind in today's society. What about people who attract attention and soon a cult of personality develops around them with negative consequence? There are examples ranging from the most recent past occupant of the White House to Jim Jones, he of the People's Temple and Jonestown massacre, or perhaps Benito Mussolini, who founded Italy's National Fascist Party in the 1930s and 40s. Despite the reality of evidence that was available about the damage that could be experienced from following the words and path laid out by such folk, people were willing to support the direction that was articulated, in the case of at least some with catastrophic results. Now, it is surely true that at least some of us search for transformative and even charismatic leadership in our time. We look for a person who can turn things around, lay out a new direction that will be better than the one we are headed in now, or give us some hope for a better future. I should add, by the way, that the same thing happens in churches. Beware this story. There is this real thing called the new Messiah syndrome. The congregation, perhaps you know of one, is starting a search for a new minister to help lead them forward. It's been a really tough go. A time of transition has occurred. And finally, the search team announces, like when white smoke goes up the chimney of the Vatican, that a new leader has been identified. In UU churches, a candidating week occurs. The new leader appears. The people fall in love with the new leader, well, maybe, and vote to call them to officially lead. And the person is pretty much crowned emperor, wherein people fall down in delirious excitement, ready to follow the path of the new leader wherever they go. They are the new Messiah. And of course, inevitably, reality strikes somewhere down the line. The new leader does something that maybe isn't so very popular with everyone in the church, or insults a pillar of the congregation who is really put off that they aren't being respected as they think they should, or does something differently than the way that beloved, now retired Reverend Dogood would have handled it. Disillusion, anger, and resentment build. And all too often, the person who was ushered into a ministry with trumpets sounding and hallelujahs all around not so long ago is now shown the door. It's a cautionary tale. It's a tale about what can happen when those who are asked to lead come up against the realities of a situation, or perhaps facts and data that begin to show us another picture of what is really going on. Shankar Vedantam says in his book, Useful Delusions, if the forces of logic and rationality often seem ineffective at fighting superstition, delusion, and conspiracy theories, it's because the new city of Rome speaks a different language than the old city of Rome. The two cities have different value systems. They have different ways of knowing. When the rational brain claims to have all the answers, it often ends up being misunderstood, undermined, or ignored. Co-create a world that produces the best in human beings, Vedantam argues, for we must certainly be informed by reason, rationality, and science, but we must also deploy the insights of logic, using aspects of our mind that are prone to storytelling, symbols, and self-deception. We rely on myth, allegory, and story to help us make sense of what we don't understand. And we hold on to those stories and make them into truths about what should be and what is true. But shouldn't we try and understand why we believe certain stories, certain myths, and also in believing what it gets us? We are, Vedantam says, not just in a war with con artists, conspiracy theorists, and demagogues. We are in a war with ourselves. Our minds are not designed to see the truth, but to show us selective slices of reality and to prompt us toward predetermined goals. So when we talk about a big lie, for instance, the idea that the Holocaust did not really happen, or Donald Trump's claim of a stolen election. We are calling out the illusions that people have held, despite data, statistics, and evidence to the contrary that what seems true is not so. Sometimes this occurs because of isolation from direct access to evidence, and sometimes because the position we hold helps us make sense of what we cannot otherwise explain. My beloved spouse calls this willful ignorance, a way in which, despite everything we know or observe, we hold on to some other truth that will advance a position that fits better with how we see the world. When I was studying American drama, one of the plays I found powerful was Arthur Miller's 1953 play, The Crucible. I imagine that a number of you know this play. It is about the Salem witch trials that occurred in 1692 and 1693. The settlers in Salem and surrounding communities had been living as God-fearing people in isolated communities. Mass hysteria took hold as people, many of them women, were accused of speaking in tongues, causing phenomena to occur, or not following accepted religious practice. Dozens died, and this piece of history has become an emblematic illustration of the dangers of religious extremism, false accusations, and lack of due process. Miller wrote the play, however, as a parable about the mass hysteria which was rampant in the United States in the 1940s and 50s. During that time, the United States was obsessed with the evils of communism and set out through its House Committee on Un-American Activities, and later through the campaigns of US Senator Joseph McCarthy of Wisconsin, to flush out all who supported socialism or communism. It was a dark time in US history and culture as the other was rooted out, and one which has been echoed in recent years through the relentless pursuit of immigrants to this country who were sought out by ICE and deported. I need not remind you that our own beloved Maria and her family have been impacted by such pursuits. What does our own brain tell us about what we know and what is true? And how do those elements shape how we as individuals behave in communities like religious ones, like this one maybe? My view is that one of the central conundrums currently facing Unitarian Universalism is the challenge between who we say we are and how we behave and understand ourselves. We say that we are an association of congregations drawn together through our churches. Our governance has delegates who vote as representatives of their member congregations on policies and statements made on behalf of our faith community. We exist in these congregations, many of whom recite a unison affirmation, which in some faiths is called a covenant. And in a lot of churches, there is also a behavioral covenant, a statement developed by and with the community that articulates how we will be with one another and how we will behave for the benefit of all in the community. And yet, we almost always seem to behave as individuals who happen to exist within the container of a congregation. We are members here, but our view is focused on what I as an individual want, not on what will be in the best interest of the congregation as a whole. Years ago, Reverend Sue Phillips, who formerly served the New England UUA region as its lead minister, told a congregation I was in, "Shocking as it may seem, The minister is not here to make you happy. They are here to serve the congregation. There were audible gasps in the room after she said that. It was a true shock for people who were focused on what I want and what will make me happy, or at least happier. And this paradox is another way in which we want to believe and what we expect can turn into a rationale for what we then imagine to be true. So of course the minister or the religious educator or the music director or the administrator should do this thing that I want, because deep inside they are here to make me happy. And because I need it, I believe that everyone else needs it in just the same way too. So please do it now, and we'll be good. That is a rationale for action that is invented, as we have done with stories since language began on earth. Things are created to explain what we want to know or understand. We develop logic for the story, we share it with others, and often it takes hold. Others believe the same thing or decide that it's a really good idea. And for sure, sometimes it is. Sometimes it's only good for one person or for a clear minority. So what are we to do when we are faced with the ultimate unanswerable questions, the ones about how to understand death and whether immortality or resurrection exists? This struggle, which philosopher Stephen Cave calls the mortality paradox, lays out the reality that we will one day die, yet we humans cannot really imagine being dead. And on the other side, Cave suggests, are the immortality narratives. First, the belief that through fountains of youth, elixirs, or special powers, we can extend life. Adam in Genesis lived to the very ripe age of 930 years. Others have been able to choose their own death or make life continue. The power of myth. Or there is the immortality that comes from other religions, that of resurrection. Here we live on or live again. Resurrection of Jesus is central to Christian faiths, and others, Jewish and Muslim, for instance, tell stories of a future day when true believers will be resurrected in an afterlife. Think of Scrooge in A Christmas Carol, who gets a do-over. Sleeping Beauty, who goes to sleep for a very long time and then awakens. The Egyptians of ancient times, who believed that the pharaohs like Ramesses II would reign in the afterlife. Whether you hold these beliefs or choose to follow statistics and science and assert that life is for here and now, we seek the narratives that will help to answer the unknown. That is, at its core, what much of religion is here for, I think, to help us struggle with the questions of the world and of our lives that we just don't understand. But the question remains, what can we explain, or what do we embrace through data, rational processes, and observation? And what do we decide to explain away through wish, hope, or prayer? Each of us will have our own answers to these queries. Knowing and unknowing can be both a blessing and a curse. Whether your eyes remain wide open or you choose to blink, may the answers that you most need become clear for you. Our closing words come from the Reverend Robert Fulgham from his first book, All I Really Need to Know, I Learned in Kindergarten. I believe that imagination is stronger than knowledge, that myth is more potent than history, that dreams are more powerful than facts, that hope always triumphs over experience, that laughter is the only cure for grief. And I believe that love is stronger than death. So may it be.
Good night, America. Rest your weary head. Remember where you started and all that lies ahead. So, darling, good night, America. Doors will open for you, but there's miles to go before you find your way back home again. Good night, America. You're looking for some shelter from all the helter-skelter of the world we're living in. So, darling, good night, America. Hold on to tomorrow when all this pain and sorrow gives way to light again. You wear your heart upon your sleeve, but your sleeve ain't long enough, and the tough get going when the going gets tough, when the going gets rough. So, good night, America. Storms are closing in, and you don't know where you're going, and you don't know where you've been. So, darling, good night, America. I'll see you in the morning when another day is dawning and the sun comes shining through. I loved you then and I love you still. You will always have my heart, and we'll all keep trying. Yeah, we'll all keep trying. Good night, America. Storms are closing in, and you don't know where you're going, and you don't know where you've been. So, darling, good night, America. I'll see you in the morning. Another day is dawning, and the sun comes shining